Hello, welcome back to Can't Take Your Call Right Now with me, Lauren Reeves.
And me, Harry Monkhouse. We're super excited. This is another bonus episode, and we are joined by two incredible gentlemen. We've got David and Rich. Good to have you on both. David, maybe I'll come to you to start with a bit of an introduction, and then Rich, we'll turn to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name's David Wilkins, founder of SDR Leaders of EMEA, SDR Leaders USA, SDR Leaders of APAC. I don't really sleep a lot.
With you.
Yeah, sleep was nice once a longer time ago. I've always been in sales development. I ran some global teams, most recently at Snowflake, leading the sales development team in EMEA, and now run community for SDR leaders to dictate what the SDR function should look like in 2030.
Exciting to hear from you as well. And Rich, yourself?
Hi there. Yeah, really pleased to be here. Rich Belson. I wear a few different hats. Currently the sales development director at Broad Gateway. We're an HR tech business based out of London, but we've got a global footprint. It sounds like maybe SDR Leaders of Antarctica is up for grabs, David. Maybe that area hasn't been covered. So maybe that's what I should focus on next. But no, in all seriousness, from a community perspective, co-founded SDR Leaders, predominantly based here in the UK. We did that around COVID time. Seemed like a good time to get people together. There was a lot of appetite for that, and the group has grown to a few hundred strong, and really excited to talk about some of the things that we've done, and also pull that together with what we're seeing from across the wider group from David's community as well.
Brilliant. When Lauren and I first kind of met in the kind of SDRs of London, right, which is the SDR version of some of these communities, right, or the feel of it. When we both got kind of moved into SDR management, the one thing that we both said were like, there isn't much community. I mean, this is more like 4 or 5 years ago when we first started thinking about this, but there wasn't much around kind of SDR management community aspect. It probably still is one of the loneliest roles there is in management, because I've always said, for me at the moment, I am the youngest manager in the business, but I'm also the only isolated one, because every other manager has got another manager in the region that it kind of pairs with them. So no, big fan of both communities as part of that. But I think the main purpose of today's episode really is to talk about some of the incredible reports that you've been able to build and gather information from your community. So David, maybe we come to you first around kind of the report itself and kind of the goals of that. And Rich, maybe we then come to you for kind of the same question.
Oh, yeah. So for the last 2 years, we've ran in EMEA, the State of EMEA Sales Development Survey. The reason is that there are some great data and research documents that are very US focused, and there wasn't anything available for an SDR manager in Germany to figure out, okay, what's the average attainment of teams? Are we above or below that? How much should we be paying an SDR in Barcelona? Am I, as an SDR senior manager, being paid enough in Paris compared to my peers? So it was trying to create this data-driven survey that leaders could use to figure out, okay, where are we as a kind of benchmark? But then also for leaders to go to their exec teams and say, hey, our comp plan is completely out of whack. No one does what we do, and that's why we're not performing. Well, actually, I'm not being paid enough here. I'm being paid half of what my peers are. So it was just trying to give EMEA people more power and to really help drive the changes they wanted to make in their business.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. We'll definitely dig into some of the key things that either are highlights for us or talking points. So yeah, super interesting. Rich, yourself?
Yeah, so there's going to be crossover for sure. I think the research that we undertook was kind of quite niche and really focused in just on leaders, managers, directors. And as you said earlier, it's quite a lonely or potentially lonely role to be in, because there just aren't that many still of people doing what we all do day to day. So therefore, it's you feel a bit isolated in lots of respects in terms of orientating yourself, in terms of benchmarking and knowing when you're budgeting and all sorts of things. So we went sort of super niche and went super deep into leadership pay. And one of the things that we did off the back of this was we created a report, but we knew that we wanted to actually make this this data kind of useful beyond after we published it. So we also created a benchmarking tool, which is like a dynamic tool that you can go into and you can put your details in, or maybe you can put the role that you're looking to go for next, and it will actually benchmark and say, what's this role being advertised? Or maybe there is no salary, as is still fairly common, most roles, that doesn't get published. And so you can put it into the benchmark tool and maybe reach out to that business when you're having the salary conversation. You're actually going with the market. Because as we know, some organizations, they might do some benchmarking, or then, that the budgets might come from a completely different calculation. But actually, as an individual going into those conversations, whether it's your next role or a promotion, or you're looking to renegotiate, I think, like David's probably found, having that community behind you makes you feel far less isolated.
Yeah, I was one of the people that actually, I remember before we did the report, I'd messaged the SDL leaders WhatsApp and was like, hey, like, just really curious, does anyone have any like recent reports on salary benchmarks? Just want to cross compare to my peers. And then when I saw you guys like launched it, I was like, oh, thank God, like I really want this, because similar to Harry, lone BDR manager in the UK, I've got nothing to compare it to. And obviously I was coming from a different, what's the word I'm looking for? Industry from my previous roles. So I was like, well, maybe it's different depending on industry, but I didn't know. Yeah, I was really keen for something like this. And actually, I'm going to dive right into a question. Rich, there was a few things that didn't surprise me in the report. For example, the more senior you are, the more paid you get. Obviously, it'd be a bit weird if that wasn't the case. Slightly concerning. I think one thing that really I did find quite interesting was the jump from sort of entry-level manager, team lead to like second in line, so just managing one manager was like 2x. And I just thought, God, like that's such a difference. And I thought I'd ask, like, you both have been like, you both are senior, you both been senior. Why do you think there is such a disparity and difference between a junior BDR manager and a more senior manager, besides just tenure?
I think I can. I guess my perspective on this is different businesses will have different views on the sales development function. So, and I'm talking in hyperbole here. I'm going to talk at extremes, I guess, to illustrate it. So some organizations will see the sales development function as just cold calling, and that's all they do. There's nothing more advanced than that you've got a list, you call through, you have a script, kind of super basic. And then you'll have some organizations where, as part of their go-to-market, maybe they're launching into new territory, or they're launching a new product, or they need to move up market or pivot or whatever it is. Sales development is probably the quickest function to start getting results, because you get that feedback loop really quickly. You can say, hey, we did 2,000 dials this week, and this is what we got from it. Try doing that in marketing spend can be very, very difficult. So I think for me, that's where probably and we found in our research that actually you can almost 3x your OTE from entry-level manager right through to the most senior that we had respond in the survey. So I think it probably comes down to, yes, you as an individual, I'm sure if you've got some great experience, but it probably is more reflective of the business that you're working in and how much it values sales development and also needs sales development to be that key part of its GTM, and therefore will pay in proportion to what it's going to deliver.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think it's just so fascinating that I feel like when it comes to SDR role, when it comes to the AE role, when it comes to even like sales management, there's just like a set kind of salary. Like when you see the ads on LinkedIn, right? Senior SDR, 40 to 45K standard. Junior SDR, well, it should be about 30 minimum, but you can see the 25 pop in there. 25 plus, right? AE, 60 minimum. Sales leaders, 120 minimum. You just don't ever see that for sales, like SDR leaders. And I think that's what's like so frustrating as an SDR leader, is that even like people that I see are actively interviewing, I think we saw it in some of the chats, people going back and forth, they were like, the difference in the salaries I'm being offered is so vast. But I just don't feel like you get that with other roles. And I really hope that's something that starts to change. I mean, I don't know. Do you think it ever will?
Well, hopefully, David, the work that we've both done is going to inform the industry. I don't know if there's, it's also, we sometimes hear some good news stories back from our community members about, how this data has actually helped them know their worth, which I think is kind of the key thing here.
I think this is not data driven, what I'm about to say, but I feel like there is a direct correlation between companies that are wanting to be successful and are successful with how much they pay talent. And you normally see the companies that are not successful or don't know what they're doing to be successful, they're not paying the salaries that they should be being paid. Hence, performance not being there. They're getting second grade talent. I mean, in the US, different story, but I know in the US, like for a VP of sales development roles over there, like some of those starting salaries are just like, it's ridiculous, like $500,000 a year. Like if you say that, that's like standard. Yeah. Yeah. And then that doesn't even include stock. I mean, it's some of the numbers you hear over here in the States, it's ridiculous. So it's about, as Rich said, about knowing your worth and knowing that you can back up the numbers that you're about to say, because this is actually what the standard is in the market.
That's such an interesting point. And I think actually, this is again nothing to do with the report, but I do think there's such a cultural difference in the way Americans view sales in comparison to how the UK/EMEA views sales and as a role. Like I feel like they do just like to pay salespeople more over in the States. I feel like that's an assumption on my point. I mean, you'll know more probably, David, than I will, because obviously you see it. But I always feel like when I talk to Americans, they always are like, yeah, I'd expect at least this. And I'm like, I think if I walked in and asked for that, they would have kicked me right out the door if it was over here. Yeah, I don't know if you have seen like that sort of thing. I mean, you mentioned it there, VP, but
I think there's also a different view on the way that, especially like the BDR function is operated within the different regions. Like we've got I would say, if I look at the BDR kind of org within most EMEA businesses, you normally, or a lot of businesses, it's a younger group that is hired out of university. So maybe some have had experience and then transitioned into a BDR role. But actually, of all of the manager progression paths, you can technically, I mean, me and Lauren have both done it, right? We've gone from BDR into BDR management within that first kind of stint. There isn't many other roles within sales where you can go and do 2 years of being a successful rep and then move straight into a manager role. Like normally, even if you're doing that, you're doing BDR, AE, and then you might move into AE manager. Same with customer success, whatever different department that you move in. So I think what you find is you get a huge amount of youth within management, first-time managers, and that I think always brings the entry level or the base or the lower end down. But then if you compare that into the US, a business development is actually like a proper profession, right? Like you have people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s that are still BDRs that have been doing this 20, 25 years, 30 years, right? Because it gives them a very, very structured life balance of, yeah, I can go and earn easy $100,000 a year within that market. Whereas we kind of don't have that in EMEA, I would say, where we don't have that, hey, this is a profession. It's the same as being a waiter. Over here, it is a proper profession. Like people are so good at it. In England, some of the service is crap. And it's not treated like a profession, right?
I can't believe that. Nando's is always great at serving us.
do you know what? That's one of the saddest things of COVID is that the QR codes coming on the tables in most places now, and you just don't get served anymore, do you? You have to like self-serve yourself half the time. Shame.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, anyway.
So add to what you said, Harry. I think but the worst thing is though is that it's junior people normally on an SDR side with no enablement, no training, no support, and you have maybe $750,000 of total all-in cost for your business unit that you're managing, and also you have a direct/indirect influence on revenue in the business. And yeah, where else are you going to give that responsibility than the SDR in the SDR organization when they need the most training development? It's crazy. Anyway.
Like Lauren, how much management training would you say you've received in your 3 years, 2 years?
Great question. Yeah, I went and self-sourced coaching, so I went and paid training. That was off me, off my own back. I got like some training at Tapalti. It was very much like, how do you choose your A, B, or C players? Learn about like colors of your people. Are they red? Are they blue? Are they yellow? Which is, I think, really good to learn, because it is like making you think about personality types and how they want to be managed. But yeah, so I got taught like the different colors and all of that, which, don't get me wrong, yeah, like I said, like is helpful. But have I had through company dedicated long? No, I haven't. I would say if I was to put it together in hours, I've probably had a week's worth in the last 3 years if I was to combine everything I've done. And half of that is self-sourced. That is me going and paying for it. So yeah, I think it is poor, but I don't think that's just for us. I think that's for management in general in sales, to be honest. I think we're expected to kind of get on with it. Like, here's the target, go and make the reps hit it. In a lot, I think that's the thing with sales, is that everything is so trackable because of metrics and targets that bit gets lost.
When I was at a company called Infoblox, and we had incredible training for first line, second line. I did the third line training, did executive presence, executive training. But then I was at one of the largest companies in the world, and there was none. And it is 1% less of organizations that actually give proper leadership development training, that really invest in it.
Yeah. You touched a bit in the report about coaching and training, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you say were the sort of standout things from that you noticed?
In terms of with SDR leaders?
Yeah, and SDRs.
Yeah, so it's the big piece was around dedicated sales development SDR trainers or enablement people. I can't remember the number on the top of my head right now, but there was starting to see an increase in the amount of SDR enablement leaders that are directly associated with the teams, which in turn, with the other stat was 55% of leaders actually hired more SDRs than not over the last 12 months. So it would say to me, correlate that companies in EMEA that are starting to take it a little bit more seriously and about trying to get this talent productive faster. But yeah, I mean, I was at an event last night in Chicago, and this SDR manager said that he has to hire 50 SDRs in the next 12 months. Yeah. He was, and then he said, but we have this enablement person who they end up having to do 2 enablement trainings because the enablement person that they have is so bad that he has to then go and do another week's of enablement with them.
And that's super hard, but it doesn't make me think. It's so common. It's so common that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think like people are fast growth, they're increasing. They just need the headcount there to start doing the job. I think sometimes they're willing to sacrifice a bit of quality.
Yeah, especially over here in the States.
Yeah, that is crazy. 50. Wow.
And so when he said this, he was like, yeah, our leadership wants us to get to 125 SDRs by the end of the year. And he'd already had like 25 over the last couple of months. And it's just like, okay, right, enjoy that.
I'd be fascinated to know why, though, and like what the ROI multiplier that they're using for the BDRs are.
Yeah,
because you're basically saying there it's almost increase it by 33% or 50%.
And then what are they going to see, a 33% increase in growth?
Yeah. I think it all depends on what the product is, right? If it's you do see some of these companies that are just like, hey, how do we go and just grab market share really quickly for like 2-3 years and then do that take the A players, promote them, and then start riffing the people that maybe didn't hit the multiplier needed. But
Yeah, crazy.
that's super interesting.
I think sort of on that point of like SDR performance, all of that, one thing that I loved in the report was the fact that it very much emphasized that it was about quality over quantity on activities. I think it said the 50 to 99 daily range was the top performing cluster. So actually doing less than 100 activities, and obviously activities is email, LinkedIn, calling. So it's all of it actually yields the best results, which I found I 100% believe in. I was within that category of voter for like daily activity. Why? I mean, I think there's a few reasons, but why do we think this is? Because I think that there's still a bit of an attitude that more is best. So I'm glad the data proves that more is not best. But why do you think this sort of came out as the result, David?
Because we're starting, the people that still live in the 1980s in terms of sales are starting to die out. I think a big thing is that we've had to increase activity to engage with people because people are just so flooded with terrible emails, terrible that AI slop generated, with AI slop generated LinkedIn messages, data that was really bad. Like I have an example, and I'll tell you the company, what it was afterwards, so I don't get sued. I had a company that used to call my dad because they'd scraped his mobile number and saw my surname. And my dad, bless him, he was a teacher. He was not in the tech space. He was like, "Why do these people keep calling me? Are you in trouble?" And it's like bad data. So people just have to do more stuff. But I think what we're starting to see are organizations go, right, this AI SDR stuff is not working. And we're now going to stop believing the hype that's on the internet. And they're actually going back to the basics, which is like human to human interaction and calling, but also investing in the data and investing in processes that's actually giving more quality information and content. So I think we're seeing that reduction in activity because we don't need to do as much.
No,
Just quickly on this point, because this is we discussed this with Mick and Hitesh as well. Around Mick hates AI SDRs. I am probably of a slightly different ilk where I can see it coming, and I'm actually looking at trying to hire my first AI employee this year. That's a goal of mine. What's your take on the AI SDR, or where do you think it kind of needs to get to? I'm assuming to work, based on what you just kind of shared there.
Me and AI SDRs have a complicated relationship.
Me too. I think I'm on your side for this one.
Yeah. I could see it a mile off. The just companies that were creating these AI SDRs that had never ever been in sales before. Mm-hmm. They were people who had never maybe even spoken to someone before in their life, and thought, let's create something that's this mass activation, and venture capital firms loved it because it was like, wait, you're going to create something that's going to cost X dollars, and then so that means I don't have to hire this massive amount of dollars. So VC firms loved it because they thought, okay, this is actually going to reduce costs, reduce customer acquisition cost. So that's why there was this massive pumping of funding and capital into those models, AI model, SDR models. But the problem is that they were crap, and they create crap, and they hallucinate, and then they might work for like a day, but then they stop working. And it's just, I really think AI for SDRs is more on that top of funnel. That's where I see it being, versus on the execution.
Yeah, I think my thing with it, right, is that I've got no issue with AI. I think AI is 100% helps a lot. My favorite thing is when like you write an email and you can put it in and then you can say, make this 100 words shorter. Love all of that for it. I think it's great. I think it does really good things. My thing is that, and I think Harry, it's gonna be so great when you start doing this and you can start telling us your experience, because I feel like all that's gonna happen is that you get this AI SDR, and the amount of time you spend trying to train this piece of AI to sound like a human, respond the right way, understand your product, all of that, you should have just hired a person and you would have got quicker results and they would have responded way better. And I think that's my thing with it, is that I'm like, the amount of time me as the leader is going to have to dedicate on this piece of tech is far more than a person who I can train, and then I can give a buddy who can go and ask their SDR peers that's going to help them. And I think that's my issue with it, is that I just don't see it actually as the time saver it's claiming to be. This is all assumption. I've never done it, so I wouldn't know. But based on my experience with AI in other things, e.g. the AI bots that you can cold call role play with, the amount of time I spent on that, building it out and trying to do the objections and like getting it to understand the product and the kind of objections that my reps get thrown, I was like, oh my God, I may as well role play with them. Like this, like amount of time, like, so that's why I feel like it's not actually that beneficial, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've got a slightly different take on it, in the sense that I think that it is clearly where the future is going. Like it'd be interesting to get both of your takes on this, but I do think that the BDR teams are going to change. Whether we think that that is going to be this year, which some people are predicting, next year, the year after, or in 10 years, AI is definitely coming for an element of our jobs at some point. So I think
Yeah.
the people that figure out how to train these AIs are going to be people that become more valuable for companies. Now, if I was listening to Lenny's podcast with Jason on it, the guy that owns Sastra, and he's gone from 28 employees to 19 AI employees, and his AIs are outperforming what his AEs were doing across all areas of the business and the BDRs. And he now has an AI that runs the AIs, and he's bought, I think, something like 16 different tools to run 19 different agents, and he has one AE now versus what he had 28 employees. I'm not saying that I agreed with his view that by the end of this year, everyone's going to be moving to an AI BDR model, but I do agree that he's like, I spend an hour to 2 hours training AIs, and now I train one AI to train the other AIs a day. So I think it's, Lauren, to your point, yeah, you do have to put a lot into it. And I think that's why a lot of people have been failing at them.
Yeah.
Because people are not educated on how to basically create a good AI, but also aren't spending enough time doing it or well enough. Rich, what's your perspective on AI BDRs?
I think there's a couple of things. Like you said earlier, AI is coming for our jobs. What I really hope it's coming for is the part of our jobs that we don't like doing.
Yes.
That would be progress.
Mm.
So I think there is definitely efficiencies to be made. I'm sure we've all do things which we used to take a long time, and we've automated in lots of different ways. I think I've got two observations on this. One is that I have seen, with the wide adoption and awareness of ChatGPT and others, it's become a very quickly consumerized product or technology. I read somewhere the other day that, ChatGPT hit, the kind of 10 million, 20 million, how many different users it was, at rapid speed compared with every other technology. My mum the other day, now that AI is in WhatsApp, she's like, I love this AI. I'm like, what are you doing with it? I don't know what she's doing. But when your mum, who was, her working generation was not kind of tech enabled, is using AI, we know it's everywhere. So it's highly consumerized, highly easy to use. However, like most things, like I can cook a spaghetti bolognese. Am I an Italian chef? No, I'm not. And I think this is what we're saying here, is that there'll be huge awareness, there'll be huge usage to a certain degree, but actually the deeper level of usage and the really intentional usage and strategic usage will still be held by a small few, mainly because of time, access to education, which is getting better all the time. So I think, yeah, the consumerization of it. The other thing which I've seen really interesting actually is adopting AI to generate your communications with your prospects. That works really well until that prospect wants to talk back to you.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, you go on that French school trip and you've got about 3 or 4 phrases in your back pocket. And unless you need to ask where the train station is, which is probably quite rare because hopefully the teachers haven't left you in a place where you need to make your own way back. So it's, in all seriousness, it's the ability to, I think, construct stories, to be adaptable, as you said earlier, Lauren, about objection handling. So I think AI is great, but it needs to be used. It's just one of the skills that people need to develop. It can't just be in isolation, because if you're doing executive pitches in an AE and some finance director throws some really tough curveball questions at you, you can't go, ChatGPT, what do you think about this? So I think it's but we're learning. This is such early days for
Yeah.
us. People are going to look back and laugh at us for what we were doing with AI. But isn't it fun to be part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's make a
I
prediction.
think
I've got the numbers here. In the 2024 report, AI SDR usage was 8.8%. Okay, from yourself, David. In the report for 2025, it jumped to 13.7%. So a 5% increase on 24 to 25. What do we think the increase is going to be in the 2026 report from 13.7%? What do we think? I think it's going to be more than 5. I think we're going to see by the end of 2026 a lot of people, I reckon 20% of businesses have got an AI SDR in there. That's my guess.
I think it'd be about a third of people, because actually I did a newsletter today about vibe coding, and there are now applications out there, like, for example, I'm not associated
Lovable.
with them. Yeah, Replit is one where you can just go and build me a landing page for an event, or build me a cold cold call training bot. You can do it on there. And so I think people are going to start to figure out, okay, I'm not just going to listen to what people are telling me I should be building this for. I'm going to figure it out myself and try it out. So I think it'll be more I think it's going to really jump this year.
Yeah, and
Nice.
I think along with like agents as well, like I think people are starting to get onto the fact that like some people are using the same prompts over and over again, and they're asking it the same tasks. So why don't you build an agent that can solve for that? So like I'm in the process of building one for like LinkedIn, so that it builds out my content structure for 3 months, and then it builds all of the content. But again, you've got to put a huge amount of work into it, because you've basically got to upload the last 5 years of your content so it sounds like you and stuff like that, which is difficult. But I agree with you, David. I think whether we class it as AI SDR or some form of like agent that sits with an SDR, I think 100% that should be in probably a third, if not slightly more.
Okay, cool. What about yourself, Rich?
Yeah, I think my maths isn't great, but I think it's going to be exponential. So going from 8 to 15 or whatever it was up to 30, that sounds pretty sensible. I think like you say, you rewind 12 months ago, depending on when you're watching or listening to this, and things were hugely different. It's exciting to be part of this, to be honest. We're kind of privileged to have access to this, and to be honest, it's an imperative for us all to go along with this and try and be leaders where possible. It's difficult to be a leader when it's moving so quick. I think it's probably the challenge.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm surprised your maths isn't very good, because it sounds like you went to a nice school where your teachers didn't leave you in the middle of nowhere in France to fend for yourself. We didn't have schools like that in Leicester. It was just like, right, we're off to the cafe. See you later.
Using his "Where's the train station" French lesson.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. Okay, I know we are wrapping up towards the end, and I have a question that I'm desperate to ask. So in the SDL report, it was shown that Series C companies on average pay around 128k in comparison to Series A at 86k. Makes sense. Series A is a very new business starting up. It's not going to have as much money. Series C, through loads of funding rounds, etc. My question is, what do you think managers who are in extremely fast-paced growing businesses that are wrapping through these funding rounds, but aren't increasing pay at the same rate. What do you think those kind of managers can do? How do you think they can have a conversation about it? Because, you know, we are in the age of tech, businesses do grow really quickly. And it, like most businesses, you get a yearly pay review. But if your business has gone from Series A to Series C in the space of a couple of years, you would not get a jump from 80K to 130 within that. Yeah, just really keen to hear your thoughts on how you can sort of navigate that conversation.
Yeah, that was one of the, when we got the crunched all the numbers and that came back, there were a few slightly less, well, not less obvious, but some things that stood out. And I think for me, really, as you say, it's this old adage of you've got to leave your current role, your current business to be, you know, for significant gains. Now, I think if you're in a Series A business, and I've been in, you know, pre-seed businesses and everything, a lot of the people you're working with, or maybe yourself, you don't know. You look left, look right. No one's done this before. No one's gone as far as this before. And I think that's where the power of the data that we're, you know, that our communities have provided is that we can show that roadmap. Because how many times do you hear about an organization hiring someone who's highly experienced, but it just doesn't work out? And let's be honest, sales is not a science. I feel there is a bit of artistry in there. So nothing's guaranteed. So if you can have those people and keep those people who maybe were with you from the beginning, and you want to retain them, then actually being able to present this data and say, look, people with my level of experience or tenure in a business of where we're going, this is the sort of market rate. So actually, even if it's a few quarters or a few years out, being able to say, this is really what, you know, when we get to that round, that's what I'll be looking for. Not just because it's a number that I've chosen, because that's what the market really looks like it's demanding. And I think that's what, again, it's knowing your worth. So I think that's, for me, that's a key part. But we did see quite an overlap between, we had seen some team leads who are being paid more than some less experienced managers. And I guess that's indicative of those organizations that are, to David's point earlier about like investing in your staff, having that career pathing, but also having that budget in place. We talk about career path and develop. Do you have the budget not just to develop those people, but actually then to retain them once you've developed them? And those two things aren't always planned out in tandem, I think.
Nice. I love that. It's really, really helpful. What about yourself, David?
Yeah. So I was at a company where I came in as a BDR and I left as a director, and I was hamstrung by that they would not give me the proper bump to get to the levels that I should have been at. And it was, but what my leadership though, they really helped in terms of, we used to do merit increases every 6 months of salaries. So every 6 months I was getting bumps, the max amount that you could get every year to try and get me closer to what it should be. Because I was underpaid quite considerably. So I think it also depends on the organization as well in terms of like stock. And if you're at ChatGPT, an OpenAI, and you're not at that point, you know, you're not in the salary terms, but you know that the company is a good one. It's about if you can get an additional stock and equity. That's normally a big driver as well. But I think the other thing as well to always remember is that the more that you're being paid, the more likely you're going to get taxed a lot more. So it's like there's also that thing to remember. Like if you're going to get a pay rise, you've got to make sure it's a significant one, so you're not hitting a threshold and then it's actually earning less take-home pay.
Yeah, or you're doing things like a private pension to try and get tax relief and all that sort of jazz. Like, yeah. Research how you can make your way go further.
Yeah.
We saw that actually. And one of the things I was excited, I don't think you've recorded it yet, but I know that you gave us a sneak peek, guys, in your pilot or launch episode, and you were talking about that kind of element of how you might actually use your funds, how you might invest the money that you're earning, so that you're not on a constant, you know, you're not constantly chasing something. And that, I think, again, the surveys that our communities have put out there allow people just to understand what are the boundaries. Yes, we heard some extremely high 6-figure salaries there, David, but actually, like you say, if you're in the UK or other places, it gives you that sort of, right, what are the boundaries here? And because we saw that potential 3x potential from team lead right through to very experienced director, for me, it was really reassuring because it shows you how much headroom there is in this still very niche role. So actually, where you may look, people may think, I've got to move from this role to this role to this role, and there are plenty of pathways. Actually, if you love this part of the go-to-market function, which I'm an addict, I'll admit to that. It's great for me and for others, probably for all of us, because this is why we're on this podcast, to know that there's that headroom. There's plenty of years, there's plenty of notches in the career, and this function can accommodate it. So, yeah, and actually to your point, David, we also, one of the things we asked was, what do people do when they move roles? And what's the biggest thing they negotiate and get? Again, just trying to equip our community with all the sort of, empower them with all of the knowledge and the hints and tips so that they can be expert negotiators. And by far and away, the most successful thing that people negotiated was, stock options. And as you say, David.
Yeah, I love that stat. It's like 4 in 5 win if they negotiate. And like, I will hold my hands up. I've never properly negotiated. And I don't know if that's like coming from a place as being a woman and being fearful of coming across as too aggressive, or that I think that definitely flows in, especially when it's a male manager. I worry that they're going to think, oh God, she's going to be a nightmare to work for. I think but like, I've never negotiated. And I think, God, what have I missed out on? Because I haven't done that. So yeah, I thought it was made me feel really positive knowing that I have a 4 in 5 chance of getting that increase if I go back in and ask for something else. So that did equip me with that bravery of like, in future when I'm looking or whatever, I know that there's a good chance that I could get it. So
I know your worth. That's the key thing.
I must have been that other 1 in 5 because I've negotiated every time, but they've said if you don't take this offer, it's off the table. So I've
it's you, Harry.
I feel like I'm on the other side of that, where I'm constantly trying to negotiate. But I think we'll discuss this in a little bit more of our kind of BDR management series as well, which I think we're probably going to be series 3 now. I'm looking at kind of as someone who is a first-time manager, and this is my first time coming in as a manager, of some of the things that I'm wanting to do in regards to like a CV build. So I constantly talk like I'm building a team in the Philippines this year. I'm also trying to hire my first AI employee. And like, what is that experience going to be worth to me on my CV rather than asking for another 10, 20 grand? Would I pay someone almost 10 grand to learn those skills and get really good at those? Because I think they'll pay kind of 20 grand. So then I make an extra 10, if that makes sense. So I think there's an element of that part. We are just going to wrap up now. And I'm going to ask you kind of both one question. What was your biggest takeaway from your report? Rich, I'll come to you first and then David.
The biggest takeaway was actually that there weren't a huge number of surprises, that if you do the things that you think are right, so if you, the key things for us, the big drivers were expanding the region, going global, having larger teams, becoming a second line or higher leader, they do return in terms of overall OTE. So I think there is a path here. Like I said, the headroom was really reassuring. So I think for me, who's someone who's been in sales development for about 8-9 years, been in sales 20 years, I'm like, actually, this is a great place to be. If you work hard, if you choose the right company, which all of the data that we're sharing with our communities helps our people to do, there is so much potential here and future. In a world where there's maybe lots of good news, for me, I was like, right, I'm in a great part of the market, I'm a great industry, and that was a takeaway. I guess personally for me, a bit more personal.
I love that.
And then on my side, I think it was the big thing was 53% of SDR leaders have increased the size of their teams in the last 12 months. So that would tell me that the fear that's online about SDRs being dead is not actually being played out in practice.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm someone that's probably gone the opposite way, right? We've reduced our team, but again, reps are now becoming way more profitable per rep, which is, again, I still think super exciting. Like, you can just lean on with some of the efficiency gains that AI is bringing. You can lean on reps more to deliver more, which is, I think, super exciting as well.
Yeah, and then I'm the opposite of Harry, and I've 4x the size of my team in the last year. This is what's so great about us. We've got such opposing opinions all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I loved the reports. They were reports that I really needed as a leader. So it's so great to have you both on here and actually get the chance to properly talk about it and the numbers and all the thoughts behind it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you both.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Cheers for
Well,
listening.
until the next episode, don't forget to like and don't forget to follow us. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to sponsor this podcast, please let us know.
Let us know. We'll say whatever opinion you want us to say.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye. Bye.